Hey guys, what's up? My name's Damian Keyes. Welcome to the channel where we are dedicated to helping you with your music industry career and dreams. But before we start, if you can do me a favor, if you can like, subscribe, share, the usual stuff, but more importantly, come and be a part of this growing community and help yourself with your music industry career. Now then, you wouldn't expect a plumber to work for free. It's that age-old argument about playing for exposure, and it's doing the rounds at the moment. And why is it always a plumber? It's the most terribly flawed argument that there is. And today we're going to look at it. We're going to look at the difference between a plumber and a musician, but we're also going to look at how you can start making money as a musician. Now, to understand your worth, we need to examine supply and demand. So in the case of a plumber, it is estimated that the UK is short of 20,000 plumbers, which means we need 20,000 more plumbers in this country to be hitting the demand that is out there for all of the broken toilets. In order to qualify as a plumber, it takes 4 years. And once you do qualify as a plumber, you'll probably be estimated a salary of around about £20,000. That's a starting salary for a plumber, depending on where you live in the country. Next, the two most common reasons why people call out plumbers are number one, to fix a leak, and number two, for blocked drains and blocked toilets. Which basically means 50% of your time as a plumber is sticking your hands in shit. Literally people's shit. So on to musicians. It is estimated that there are 50,000 working musicians in the UK. That is an estimate from Statista.com. Now that will take into consideration everything from covers bands, teachers, session players, songwriters, all the way through to Ed Sheeran and Adele. All of those will be in that 50,000 musicians. However, it is also estimated that there are currently 50,000 music students in the UK every single year. Now think about that. 50,000 jobs, and they're not jobs, but 50,000 working musicians at the moment, and 50,000 people trying to break in every single year to those 50,000 jobs. Supply and demand, it doesn't add up. That doesn't include people that are also trying to do this who aren't in the music education system. So the demand for musicians simply isn't there. We have enough musicians, we don't need any more. In this office, we deal with finding musicians work, and we are getting CVs every single day from musicians trying to find work. There just simply are so many musicians and such a small amount of work. So a question is, can I find someone to come round and unclog my bog for free? Someone who's going to stick their hand in my toilet and pull out some poo and fix my toilet for free. Are you going to do that? Probably not. If I have a party, can I find a musician who's going to come around and perform for free? Probably yes. Now, I can feel the rage coming through the screen. I know everyone's going, oh, it shouldn't be like that. But that's the reality. And I need to get this point across. This is not from my point of view, this is from someone who is trying to find musicians to play at a party or play at an event or get you to perform. They don't care about your rent. They don't care whether you eat, or they don't care about your well-being. They care about their event. They care about their promotions company. They care about themselves. If you get to eat, that's fantastic, but they are not there to worry about your welfare as a musician. Now, I don't want this to be a negative video. I want this to be a positive video, because this is a positive message. This is about supply and demand, which means this is about leverage. This isn't about being a number. This is about how you get a career, how you get paid. And the way you do that is by being better than other people, more employable, a better musician, more strings to your bow, more guns in your arsenal that make you a more employable musician. That is leverage, and that's the bit. It's not about just because you've studied somewhere or just because you happen to be a guitarist that you should get paid. That doesn't work. What works is if people are looking around and going, you're the best option. You're the person I want to come and play for me. Everybody is fighting for the paid work, of which there isn't as much paid work as there are musicians wanting to do the paid work. So how do you stop being paid in exposure. You get good. You realize that this is a competition and it is dog eat dog. There are thousands and thousands and thousands of guitarists, bass players, drummers, singers, saxophone players, anything you can think of. There are thousands of them all fighting for that paid work. Therefore, it's a competition. So this leads me on to the big question. How much is exposure worth? Because exposure is a tradable commodity. Exposure is worth something. When I see these memes that just say, oh great, because I can pay my rent in exposure. No, but you can build your CV with exposure. You can build your experience with exposure. You can get better as a musician by getting on stage and getting that experience. This is a tradable commodity. So if I said to you, would you go and support your favorite band? Would you go and support the Foo Fighters on a stadium tour for free? You'd probably say yes. If I said, would you turn up and play on an album that's probably going to be a #1 hit for free? You'd probably say yes. So this is a tradable commodity. Your job is to figure out whether that exposure is worth it or whether it's not, because you can always say no. Do you want to come and play at my garden party? It's great exposure. You can say, no thanks, it's fine. I don't really want to do that. Do you want to come and play on this album for free? We think it's really going to go. And you say, why not? It could be good exposure. It could be something for my CV. While you're trying to figure out whether exposure is worth something, you also need to think about where you are at on your journey. If you just left music college, or you're 16, 17, 18, 19, even 20, or even if you're older than that but don't have that much experience, then this free gigs or this exposure might be worth more than someone who's 10 years down the line that's done 1,000 gigs, that has performed across the world. So your job is also not to try and jump from A to F. Your job is to take baby steps and say, where's my CV? I'm going to build my CV up like an asset, because a CV is an asset. And your job is to think, well, it could be exposure, but even if it's not exposure, it's still experience and I'm still getting better from doing it. So let me tell you a story. I have been a teacher for about 20 years. I know, I'm pretty old. But I started being a bass teacher when I was 19 at a college in Guildford called ACM. That grew, then left there, built BIMM, built the music college BIMM, and I was teaching probably 2 or even 3 days a week for many years. I am no stranger to standing in front of people and lecturing and teaching. But about 2 years ago, I got asked to do a keynote. Now, a keynote is kind of like a one-off lecture, like a TED Talk type of thing. And I really enjoyed it, and there's a market for that. It's really good for building a brand, it's really good for building awareness, but you get paid for it as well. So I really enjoyed it. Now I wanted to break into the scene of doing these keynotes. Even though I have a really good CV and a lot of teaching experience, and I'm used to standing on stage, I had to do the same thing. I needed the exposure, I needed the experience. Now I've been really lucky to go and do some talks all over the world. I did a talk in Boston. I was also lucky enough to go and do a talk at Berkeley. I did a talk in South Carolina. Last week I did a talk in Napa Valley over by San Francisco. It's amazing. What you don't see is quite a lot of these talks for the first 6 to 8 months. Not only did I not get paid for doing them, I paid myself to go to do these talks. I paid to do these talks because this is how I'm going to learn how to do it, and not learn how to stand on stage and teach, because I've been doing it for a while. It's how I learn how to interact with the people who are booking. It's how I learn to stand on stage and figure out what will work and what won't. It's how I learn about what I'm talking about and how I'm going to structure that into a 40-minute or an hour. It's how I learn about what I'm going to do. And the 10,000 hour rule applies. 10,000 hours of sitting in your bedroom playing guitar is different to 10,000 hours of sitting or standing on stage and performing. They are different, which is different to 10,000 hours of performing in a studio. And just because you've had a guitar in your hand for 10,000 hours, it doesn't automatically give you the right to be a studio musician or perform all over the world. So with the keynotes, I started off by paying to do these keynotes. Then after a while, a few people were approaching saying, oh, I saw you do those keynotes. Would you mind coming and doing a keynote here? Now, after a while, instead of me paying to do the keynotes, all of a sudden, I just said, yeah, no problem at all. If you pay my travel and accommodation, I will come and do that. Then I was doing it for free, but at least I wasn't losing any money. Then, all of a sudden, I put my prices up a little bit and said, look, I'm really, really busy. I would like to do it, but it will cost you. And I was charging a couple of £100, so at least that way I wasn't losing out. And then it built and built and built. But I know that if I carry on doing this and I carry on doing the keynotes, I know that in 2 years' time, I'll be charging £5,000 to £10,000 for a keynote minimum. And I know that because I know people who charge 30 grand an hour, 30,000 an hour for doing keynotes. And I don't know of the people, but I know of people that charge 70 to 100,000 an hour, and fly all over the world. But they didn't start there. They started way, way, way back at the beginning. And I recognize that, and you need to recognize that. So when you see someone talk about exposure and how it doesn't pay the rent, it might not pay the rent, but neither does no gig. Till your diary is full and that phone is ringing off the hook with people who are genuinely wanting you and willing to pay the money, until that point, you might have to just swallow your pride and start thinking about exposure being part of building your CV, but more importantly, building your worth and building your experience. So let's leave the poor plumbers alone, because they have a tough enough job without musicians getting on their back. And I can promise you, the next time your toilet floods everywhere, you'll be on the phone to that plumber with your credit card in your hand. Do you think that you should be getting paid for everything that you do? Or, like me, do you believe in the power of free? Do you believe that you start at the bottom and you work up and you're entitled to nothing until you've earned it? I want to know what you think. So come and be a part of the community, but leave some comments below, because I want to know what you guys think, because I may be way off on this. But otherwise, do me a favor, like, share, subscribe, the usual stuff. Come and be a part of this community and come and engage. Come and be a part of chatting about your career and how we can start coming up with ideas to take you to the next level. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.